Hey, it's Massey. Here's Lakeside Chat, Friday, number 6. Every Friday throughout the summer, hopefully there's going to be a Lakeside Chat. Sometimes they're thematic, sometimes it's a period of time, sometimes it's a place, sometimes it's a mood. But this is one based on being all alone, working solo with no one else. Now, there are some exceptions there. So I want to talk about 5 records here that are soul creations of the artist, of the musician. Some of these people have been in bands, some have not. And this is at a time before it got really popular to record at home and overdub, except for one. One is a later record over the last 15, 18 years or something, but the rest go back 50 plus years. So let's start out that solo record. Now, in most of these cases, there are maybe a couple overdubs. There's a horn here or a vocal there that have been added beyond the original artistic intent and creation of these artists. But these are really more intimate records for the most part. So let's start in 1970 with Paul McCartney's first solo album, McCartney. Linda did the cover. Linda is on vocals on a couple of these. This is that period of time. All the crap was going on with the lawsuits with the Beatles. And there was some competition. Apple and the rest of the Beatles didn't want this coming out at the time it was to come out because it was going to compete with Let It Be, that soundtrack, and of course the movie, which we now know as turned into the whole Get Back thing. So this is a wonderful 4-track recording. McCartney did all the overdubs, did the bass parts, did the piano parts, did all the vocals with, as I said, the exception of the Linda thing. A great record. Are there inconsistencies? Are there a couple things that maybe aren't so great? Sure. But it was something very intimate. Now, around this time, this is 1970. This is March, April 1970 when this came out. Some of the critics on this and a couple of these other albums would call this series of records by artists when they do everything themselves. They don't bring in a bass player or a drummer or anything else, as self-indulgent. But what are they talking about? Of course, one of his greatest songs ever, Maybe I'm Amazed, is on here, and I just love this whole song. Opens up with this beautiful guitar bit, acoustic, just 45-second piece, the lovely Linda. It goes into That Would Be Something, another killer McCartney song. Valentine's Day Every Night is a great song too that he would bring back on his Unplugged record years later. I just love that song. Hot as Sun, of course, from the Beatle days, as well as Teddy Boy. Teddy Boy they tried to put on the White Album and it didn't work, or at least it didn't work for the rest of the Beatles, so it was off. So it turns up here. Maybe you could argue Crean a Core with that drum solo at the end is sort of an indulgent piece of music that isn't necessary, but it makes for the do-it-yourself nature of this album. Sing Along Junk, and Junk, of course, beautiful, beautiful melody by Paul McCartney. Next, the end of that year, the album that sounds like a McCartney album, but it's not a McCartney album, but it's a great solo record. It's Emmett Rhodes. Emmett Rhodes' debut as a solo artist. He had been in a band, put an album in 1967 called Merry-Go-Round, but this came out on ABC Dunhill. This is a great record. Now, this was delivered or played to ABC Records as demos, and they liked it so much they put it out. These weren't intended to be released as a normal record initially by Emmett Rhodes. And the song, You Can Live Till You Die, Live Till You Die, was a big hit in 1970. This is a killer album. This is better than the McCartney album. And a lot of people compare it to that because he plays all the instruments on it, all the dubbing. Again, this was a time where that wasn't as common. Not a lot of people had home recording setups or would have the budgets to go in the studio, aside from obviously McCartney, who worked at home. I think he took a 4-track tape recorder up to Scotland, worked at home in London, and made that album. But this is a great album. Emmett Rhodes, and it's just simply called Emmett Rhodes on ABC Dunhill Records. There you go. Next, of course, this fellow needs no introduction. This became the first solo album of Pete Townsend of The Who, and this is called Who Came First, He's Stepping on Eggs. This was, again, a series of demos and works in progress and unfinished pieces that he was working for the Lighthouse Project that The Who were going to put out as a massive follow-up to Tommy, and instead it turned into Who's Next. We know what happened there. But this is a great record. Now, there is a song on here with Ronnie Lane singing, so it's not totally solo, but most of it is a solo record. He plays guitar on that song sung by Ronnie Lane, Evolution, that Ronnie had sung with the Faces, but this is a great version of it. But the version of Pure and Easy that would turn up on a Who album, I think it was on Odds and Sods, I love this version. It's incredible. I like his vocals much more than I like Roger Daltrey's. One of my favorite songs on here is Sheridan Gibson, a simple song. I'm sitting in Sheridan Gibson playing my Gibson. The guitar part on that, there is a French horn on that, so there's a couple little added additions on here. Heartache is the only cover song, I believe. And that's a song by the American country artist Jim Reeves. And this is a spiritual album, and he actually professes his spirituality to this person, and did a couple of records, independent things early on. Happy Birthday record to Meher Baba, and there's a song on here that ends at Parva Digar, which is an adaptation of Meher Baba's Universal Prayer. So there is a spiritual side to this, based on his teaching and his learnings and the religion in a way, the spirituality that he followed, Pete Townsend. I just love this record. When it came out, I got it. This is 1972, a fantastic record, and should be in every collection. And it's better than some later Who records, actually. Of course, one that you can't deny the greatness, and that's Springsteen's Nebraska. This is sandwiched in between The River and Born in the USA. Again, this is where Bruce Springsteen was set up in his house, in his bedroom, with a Tascam 4-track recorder, and started doing overdubs and demos. What would be potentially songs for the next Springsteen album that became Back in the USA? But it turned out something different. In fact, the band tried to work on some of these songs. There are band versions of songs that I think they're coming out eventually, but this is a really cool album, an important album for Bruce Springsteen, very lo-fi and very intimate, and just a wonderful record. In fact, I think the upcoming biopic is really based on Nebraska. There's a soulful feel and vibe to this record that is really good. And then lastly, the last one from 2008. This is Bonav. Justin Vernon's moniker is Bonav. This is one of those records that just surprisingly came out of a really down time for this artist. He got sick. He went to his father's cabin in the hills of Wisconsin. I believe he was from Raleigh, North Carolina. Set up a multi-track recorder and did some overdubs. He was sick, he was heartbroken, and he worked on these songs. And it became something that his friends and in his inner circle really supported him and said, you really need to release this. And he put it out initially as an independent record release. And then he was finally picked up, and it became a really kind of big indie hit at the time. Now, Bonav has turned into something else completely. And now a lot of his records, and I like some of them, I don't like everything he does, but a lot of his records are by committee in a way. He's the focal point, almost like the producer-director, and all these different other artists come in as producers and mixologists and electronic things. This is an acoustic album, very influenced by Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska also. Very intimate, something that really he did for himself. And that's what's great about both Nebraska and the Bonav record. These two artists really did these for themselves, not expecting to have them out commercially. I guess you could say that about the EMTT Roads, because those were going to be demos as well. Pete Townsend wasn't really designed as an album either. Those were demos and interludes and parts of other projects he was working on. And then as he started compiling it together, because the label Track Records wanted to put something out because there were bootlegs coming out. So he decided, wait a second, he's going to mix this up and turn it and make it a proper debut solo record. So that's the solo time, the lonely time of artists. Now, right now it's a whole different world now because everyone can do this at home. Obviously, some artists do it better than others, but this is the time. You know, Bonav maybe was a different situation because that's later. It's only 15 years ago or so. But there was a time when most people couldn't do this. They'd have to pay studio money, and it's really nice having these records and how special they are, intimate they are. And all 5 of these are great friggin' records. So thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you. Take care.